I think you'll see me in a second. Ta-da! So just so you know, I work for Cross River Media. I'm their author relations coordinator. A few years ago, I met Tamara Clymer. She's one of their editors and publishers here this week also. She lives in Kansas, and she works with Deb Butterfield, who's our editor, and Deb lives in Missouri, and I live in Colorado Springs. So anyway, I went to the conference, met Tammy, and was so excited. I was like, I really want to work with you. I didn't have a one sheet. I didn't have anything. I'm sorry, I did have a one sheet by that time. But so we came up with that because I'm a connections person, she needed somebody to kind of wrangle her writers. And so that became my job. And so I love doing that. That's one of the jobs I do. I'm a wedding officiant, and I love doing that. I do almost all of them outdoors. The one that's most memorable so far is the one that we did on February 2nd of 2022. And it was 2 degrees out. So I don't recommend that one. Yeah, it was freezing to death. So anyway, we're going to talk about boundaries today and how to set them and what they are. And I'll stop, every once in a while to ask you guys questions. If you need a question or something like that, you're welcome to put it in the chat. I have no idea how I see where the chat is. I don't know that I can keep track of it. Patty, would you do me a favor? And if you see a question in there, would you help me find it? Would that be okay?
I'm sorry, I was muted. Yes, I'll keep track of chat for you, Edie.
Yeah,
I can't even talk, so I guess I better just be reading.
Yeah, you'll just be reading it. That'd be good. All right, so here we go. So let's define what a boundary is. Most people are afraid of boundaries. They're afraid to say the word boundary. And it's okay. Boundaries are good and healthy. And that's the thing that we need to understand, is that they really are exactly, God created boundaries. So I'll give you the definition because so many people don't know what boundary is, or they have very loose boundaries. A boundary is something that indicates bounds or limits, a limiting or bounding line. And we can even use it plural. Did you notice that? We can have boundaries, not just one boundary. And I just want to tease you guys with that. I know you all know what boundaries are. God created boundaries. I mean, we think that, that's something new that we've done and put on our schedule, is we put boundaries, but God's the one who did that. He separated the sky from the land and the land from the water. I mean, day 1, 2, 3, all those after the creation, he is creating boundaries, and he's giving us that example that boundaries are healthy and good. He created the boundaries even for ourselves, our personal boundaries. He gave us skin. I mean, we could be just this gelatinous matter floating around like some kind of Star Wars character or something. I don't know. But we're not. Even our bodies have those boundaries. Our organs stay in certain areas, and they're vital for us to live the life that God calls us to. We don't always understand that. I think it's so often that people want to cross over your boundaries and not understand that those personal boundaries are so very important, and they're created by God. Boundaries can be timeless, or they can be for a season. They're clear. Sometimes they're measurable. They're firm. Some are firm. Your values should be firm. You should always be the same wherever you're at, whatever company you're keeping, that those values stay in place. But also your boundaries can be flexible. And you're the one who allows that flexibility in or out. I'm sure you've all met somebody who's been, who is very black and white, and they absolutely have no space for grace in there. And so we don't want our boundaries to be so tight that there's no grace. We want to make sure that they're flexible, but at the same time, respecting our values and what's important to us. So now we're going to examine, evaluate, and execute. I like my little guy there. I think he's kind of cute. Are you guys seeing the pictures okay? Mm-hmm. Not at me? Okay, good. So what do your boundaries look like? Is this the kind of fence that you would think would keep much out? We see these pretty common here in Colorado, especially out in the country part, in the mountains. I'm not sure what that meant to keep out. The winds blow so badly here that wouldn't even, that's somebody that, I think that boundary is one that you could have for people that actually respect your boundaries. You wouldn't have to have a really big, tall one on for that one, or a big one. So how do your boundaries, how do other people see your boundaries? You see these guys, one is on the side of the fence and one's got his head through the fence. He sees there's a boundary, hasn't gone all the way through, but he's definitely pushing in, isn't he? And so that's something to think about. How are we representing our boundaries so what other people see? Let's get things in order first when we talk about boundaries. God has an orderly design for his creation and our lives. And so when we put God first, that is so vital. It's health giving, it's life giving. It helps us to be who we're supposed to be when we put God first. A lot of people want to mix up these priorities, and that becomes a problem because that's not the order that God has for you. It's God first, your spouse, then your children and extended family, and then ministry, whatever that ministry looks like. If it's, ministering to your neighbor or to the, lost or whoever it is, but your first ministry is to your relationship with God and then your spouse. One of the things that I learned when I was a pretty new believer, I'd been married about 7 years, and my husband went to Korea, and it was the first time we'd ever been separated in that 7 years. We were very close, didn't have any children, and he left, and I realized that I had him first and then God. And when he left, God showed me, he was like, you have him because I gave him to you. And so that put my priority in there, and it changed our marriage. I mean, we didn't have a bad marriage to start with, but it definitely helped us understand what God had for us. So when my husband says he loves God more than me, I'm like, amen. That's exactly what I want. And he wants that for me also. And your children need to understand that your relationship with the Lord is first. Your relationship with your spouse is second, and then them. They will come and go. Hopefully your spouse will stay for as long as he can, or she can. Is it all ladies? I can only see ladies in our group. So I don't know if we, any guys? No, I just see ladies. Okay, good deal. Oh, sorry, somebody's phone. It's supposed to be off. Okay. And this is a space for us to ask questions. So let me stop sharing for a second. I can see your faces.
I didn't see anything come across in chat, Dee Dee, just so you know.
Okay, good. All right. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Oh no. Hold on, you guys. I'm so sorry. Way too many buttons to click. Okay, I can see you. So how are you? You can unmute yourselves. Well, this is going to be, very informal. I just wonder, how do you feel about boundaries? Or is that something that you're comfortable with establishing? Do you know how to set boundaries? Or Vera?
This is the center. Vera, do you want to go first?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can go. That's fine.
Okay. I have had a bad problem of being a rescuing, and got myself into some pretty sticky situations. So this has been in the last couple of years that I have started to learn to set boundaries.
Yes, that's good.
It's very, very wisdom to set boundaries.
And I think too, sometimes we struggle with that. If you have a boundary, as a Christian, sometimes we think, well, we have to help everybody. We're not called to do that for every single person. Not that I'm not saying you don't love people. And I mean, I'm one of those people that will stop in the middle of the highway and, pick up something that I shouldn't, or do whatever, you know what I mean? So this is the choir preaching here, or preaching to myself, whatever it's called. But I think that we misconstrue God's message of loving people and caring for them as doing for them and rescuing them. And that doesn't have to be the case at all. But thanks for sharing that, Vera. Jacinta, is that you say your name? Jacinta? Am I saying it right?
Yes, you got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yes, this is a journey that the Lord has led me on because as a nurse and a lot of my colleagues, we have a difficult time setting boundaries because I think most people, I would say the majority of people who get into the caring profession loves to care for people, and it may be their calling.
Yeah.
So that was something I had to learn the hard way. And it's, I think I have had to reach many of my colleagues and help them to establish boundaries because it is the source of a lot of stress burnout, and a lot of consequences. And it's really interesting that you are dealing with that topic because it's very, very important.
Really is.
I think I had an advantage because I was a younger of a large family, the 11 of 13. So I discovered I needed to set boundaries. And what I did is I found a hiding place where I could go to get away from people, so that I could have, in a way, a safe place or a boundary. It was a physical boundary. It was a tree where nobody knew I was. But it's really important. And I think as a believer, it's really challenging to feel comfortable with boundaries. So I think your workshop is very timely and very, very important.
Thank you, Jacinta. It's important to know that when we're doing boundaries for people, and giving them the space to do for themselves, we're actually helping them more than by doing the things for them or allowing them to put stuff on you, because God has a plan for you and their plan isn't necessarily his plan. So that's where staying close to the Lord helps too. Patty, do you have a question?
I just wanted to make a comment in regard, let me get unmuted. I just wanted to make a comment in regard to what we're talking about. Yeah, I have a terrible time with boundaries. Number one, I'm a procrastinator. Number two, as Jacinta just said, I was in the healthcare profession for years. I was a nurse as well.
Yep.
And I don't have any problem with family. My daughter lives right here in town, and I'm very blessed to have her live right here. She very much respects my boundaries and I respect hers because she works crazy, outrageous hours. Sometimes she does 3 or 4 12-hour shifts in a row and works on her day off as well because she's putting a kid through college. So, but anyway, my thing is more with organizations, for example.
Right.
Okay,
Well,
I
we
have
will-
been the secretary of an organization for probably 5 years now that is struggling, really, really fighting to even stay alive.
Yeah.
And I feel that guilt of, oh, gee, I have to show up at this meeting because I'm probably only one of 3 that will.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm having a difficult time. And I don't know if you ever, any of you, how far back some of you have been with the conferences, but Dee Dee, did you know Lorraine Snelling?
I didn't. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. She had us in a workshop and she said, when people ask you to do something, to bake cookies for the 3rd grade, you tell them, I cannot do that. I am a writer. When so-and-so calls you and says, can you prepare something for this dinner? You say, I can't do that. I am a writer. And she had the whole class
I
chanting,
love it.
I am a writer.
Good
It
deal.
was really cool.
Well, we'll talk a little bit about how to set some boundaries too. So let me share my screen with you guys again. Hopefully, maybe I'll get in the right place. Okay. So when we do boundaries, we need to make sure we put God first. I know it's so much easier to say it than to put it into practice, but if God is not first, the rest of your life is not going to be in order. You will have a disorderly life. That's just, I don't know that I've read that in scripture anywhere. I just know it from experience. And I'm pretty sure that most of you have the same thoughts. So even Jesus had to get away, very early in the morning while it was still dark. Jesus got up and left the house and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. God's calling us to do that. I mean, you don't have to leave your house necessarily, but definitely understand that you need to spend time with him. So we spend time, money, and effort supporting what is important to us. Whether we realize it or not, we do. When we allow people to put things into our life, into our schedule, we're telling them at that point, your thing is more important than what I'm already doing, whether I'm writing or doing something else. And so I would like you to look at your bank account and see what you support. For me, I support Chick-fil-A, any of these fast food places. So I don't support the grocery store as much, probably should, but so, we look at our accounts and we say, where is our money going? And later we'll talk about evaluating different things too. Look at your schedule. Where do you spend your time? Does your calendar look anything like this calendar does, kind of right here, about what all you're doing with the little sticky notes and stuff? And I have 3 jobs, so I understand about being busy, and I'm still trying to help my husband be retired. So he's fully retired and he wants to travel. So we kind of work our schedule around so that there's time off, there's time working, there's doing different times. By the way, that is not my calendar, just so anybody wants to know. How's your health? When's the last time you checked your health numbers instead of your social media numbers? You know, do you know what your cholesterol is? Do you know a healthy weight? Have you taken those last, did you take your flu shot if you needed that? Whatever, you need to keep you healthy. Have you evaluated that or examined that anytime soon, recently? So who's the what, when, where, and why of your life? I'm going to ask you to examine your schedule, create a priority list, and set realistic timeframes. I think I was in one of these other classes. I think it was on here this week. They was talking about, no, I'm sorry, it was something else I listened to. They're talking about that they say, okay, I can do this project in 2 days. And reality is life happens and you need to put a time frame, a buffer in there when you're creating these time schedules for yourself. So examine your schedule, create a priority list, and set realistic timeframes. And rest. Jesus did. Put that on your schedule to rest. I know that sounds kind of funny, but if you've got to block off time to do that because your body needs you to be resting. I tell you a little bit, I suffer with fibromyalgia and several years ago decided to do a health thing that made you sicker before it made you better. And so for about 2 years, I hardly ever left the house because I was in so much pain and couldn't do much. But what happened was I had to learn through that period of time to make my health a priority, to make rest a priority, and to really make sure that what I said yes to was what God wanted me to say yes to. And so funny because like my sister gets, she's a writer, but she is a hobbyist, which is fine. That's her goal at this point. But she gets frustrated because people will push in on her, writing time or whatever. Well, they don't know what her demands are. She hasn't defined them. She's very vague in those definitions or those demands. And so they can't follow her demands or even please her in that because she doesn't know what she wants. So people will respect what you respect. If you respect your calendar, so will they. If you don't know what you want, no one else will either. So it's something to know. If they see that you're all sitting down, having a good time, chatting or whatever, and it's like, oh, 4 o'clock, I need to go, I got to leave so I can go write. And you go do that. After a few times doing that, removing yourself from things or, just showing them that you're working, they'll begin to respect it also. I'd like you to think about what's sacred in your life. And if you're a writer and God's called you to write, that is a sacred place that you can say, this is sacred for me. So you need to respect that. When something is sacred, it's important, it's valued, it's protected. And so when you can define and create your sacred times, like time with God, fellowship, your health, your writing, fun, rest, whatever those things are that you decide these are sacred. For me, when I was going through my fibromyalgia issues, my family knew I had to rest, and going from a type A, totally extrovert person to staying home was the hardest thing I had to do. But I knew to recuperate or to get better, I had to keep that time sacred. And I had to say almost what some people might say, be selfish, but I can't take care of somebody else if I'm not taking care of myself first. Has anybody ever been on an airplane? Yeah, been on an airplane. And when you're on a plane, what do they say? The first thing if the oxygen things drop, take care of yourself first and then someone else. You can't take care of someone. Could you say that again? My Apple Watch wants to know what I just said. It's talking to me. So if you aren't taking care of yourself, then you certainly can't take care of someone else. Now, keep your sacred time well guarded. I'm hoping this little picture will remind you to guard your sacred time. Your calendar is your own to control. And I know and understand that family comes, emergencies happen and all that. I get that. But that goes back to also putting some buffer time in your calendar to say, you know what, I got to add an extra hour in my day because something always comes up, or making that time so that you can do what you want to do with other people and to help them in those places if you choose to do that. But remember, your calendar is your calendar to protect. It's yours to control. You teach people how to respect your time and space. It really is. It's about, here's something to think about. My husband was in the Army, and there was a particular office that they could not go and drop off material or information to after 4 o'clock. Like if it was 4:01, you were not getting in the door. They locked the door, and that was the Army, which is pretty unusual because usually you just do whatever. But that particular office, they had great boundaries. My husband knew if he had to have a document or whatever to them, it had to be in before 4. My husband, who struggled with boundaries in the Army, he would be there till 7 or 8 o'clock at night trying to take care of a project, or what he called put fires out, and because people knew that they could ask him and he would keep doing, because he felt like as a Christian that's what he should do, that he needed to get the job done and done well. But what he did instead was help those other people not have boundaries, not have respect for him or other people. And so I think when we guard our time, our calendars, we're actually teaching people a really great lesson of respect. So you need God time, you need time alone, and you need time to fellowship. And each of those, you get rest, you get recovery, and you get to rejuvenate. Your body needs you to physically sleep, because if you don't sleep, your body doesn't recover from what it needs to recover from that day. And it doesn't rejuvenate you to go on and create and do the things that God's called you to do the next day or next year. 3 things to remember. Stay strong in your relationship with Christ, shield your health, and secure your boundaries. Go back to that dragon. So I'm gonna stop sharing for a second and talk a little bit. Where are we at with our time? We're doing pretty good? Yeah, I think we're good. Do you guys have any questions yet? Nope. You're all so quiet. Oh, you're all muted, that's why. I think when we teach people respect, when we teach people our boundaries, we're teaching them to respect. And so that's honoring God. God has boundaries for us, for himself. Like he doesn't want us doing certain things. And he doesn't want us to treat people a certain way. Those are all boundaries. And when we honor him with those boundaries. Oh, I'm sorry. Jeanette, I'm sorry. I just saw your hand up. Go ahead. You need to unmute. You're muted. We can't hear you. Oh, there you go.
Okay. I just saw a little headline one day with Steve Jobs, and he was saying, if you want to stay focused, you have to learn how to say no.
That's great.
And I didn't read the whole article, but I was like, I've been saying yes to too many things. And the problem with saying yes to too many things, I think, is like being a hoarder. You always think that but then you can't find the thing you need when you need it, because you have 30,000 other things that you have to dig through. So I think that sometimes less yes is more for the yeses God has called you to. And that's hard for me, because I want to say, like right now, I'm cooking for a dinner tonight that, I mean, I'm just saying, I couldn't really say no, but and it'll work out. But sometimes we do need to say no.
You need to say no probably more often than you do. And people are not going to be happy with you sometimes, especially if they've been used to leaning on you. What usually happens is when someone will want to ask you to do something because they haven't managed their calendar or managed their expectations or their boundaries well. So now they're going to pour over into yours and expect you to kind of pick up the pieces. And that's not what you need. That's not what you're called to. So it's okay to say no. And like I said, some people will be upset. Another thing is to know you don't have to explain your no. A lot of people feel like I can't tell them no without, telling them why. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that, or just, no, thank you. thank you for asking me. That's a great, thing. Thank you for thinking about me. And, they might say, well, you've got a lot of time. It's like, I do have time, but I'm doing what God's called me to do. I mean, and you can say it in a nice way. And I don't mean to be, I never say no to someone mean, but I also, when they tell me no about something, I respect it immediately. So if someone tells me, if I ask them, like, hey, you want to, work on this project with me? They're like, oh, you can kind of tell when they're hesitant. So I was like, okay, no problem. I'm respecting, but I tell them, I use these words, I'm respecting your no. So that they know that it's something about when we put things in language, we word what we're feeling and thinking. And that I think that helps people understand kind of why we're who we are and what we're doing. Again, it doesn't go back to explaining what you don't have to go through and list all the things you're doing in your life to be able to say no. It's your right and your boundary to say no. Patty, you got your hand up? Did you want to say something?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to address. You don't have to justify your reason either. All you have to do is say no. All you have to do is say, I have plans.
Mhm.
Even if those plans mean sitting down and reading your favorite novel for an hour, that's none of their business what your plans are.
Exactly.
And you do not have to justify
Yep.
your no. And I'm finally learning to deal with that and just say, I've got plans for that day.
That's great.
And
That's really good.
yeah, so it's a step forward for me.
And it is, and that you'll see a slide I have later. Practice doesn't make perfect, it makes progress.
Mhm.
And so you practice it every day in little situations, whatever that is. If it's, somebody trying to fill up your water cup at the restaurant and you don't want them to fill it up, but you let them do it anyway. It's like,
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
no, thank you. And so making sure that you're aware and present in your situations too makes a difference on being able to set boundaries, because people will sneak them in on you, things that you aren't aware of. You're like, oh, well, how did I agree to say yes to making a potluck or, whatever it is? Because you're like, I didn't think I said yes to that, but next thing you know, it's on your list. So
Yeah.
just being aware is definitely a case. Does anybody else have anything else to say? Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that one of the ways I found it difficult to say no. So one of the ways the techniques I used, especially at work, was to say, why don't I get back to you? Let me check with my family.
Mm.
And it gave me that time to breathe, to think, to
Yeah.
pray, to just, have that wiggle room before I did.
I think that's a great idea.
Mhm.
But it does lead to having to have more conversation about something that you already probably know that you want to say no to. So
Good
that's a
point.
great step to start. And sometimes you do need time to think about it, especially if it's a project that's going to take more time than you're, not really sure. So yes, you know what, give me some time and I'll get back to you. Make sure that you do get back to the person, because you want them to know that when I do tell you no, it's a no. Or if I tell you yes, it's a yes. You know what I mean? So that's something to.
Yeah, I think what it did, it also gave me the wiggle room, because there is that emotional connection. That's that, for me as a healthcare giver,
Right.
I'm dedicated to caring for the patient.
Yeah.
So I needed that emotional separation to make a decision that gave me the freedom to evaluate my boundaries, or to put my boundaries in place.
I love that. That's so good. And also, we all think a little bit differently, like what we process. So I process everything out loud. You know what I mean? That's, pretty much and a lot of women do. My husband, when I ask him a question, I can't expect an answer for him right away. If I do, it stresses him, and he needs that time to kind of like think it over. Like you were saying, give yourself some space. Just send that. That's how Seth is. And I honor him with that. Like, I don't try to come to him and say, okay, let's go. It's hard for me because, again, I'm a type A driven person and my husband is so laid back. So we've had to honor each other's processing systems when we ask a question or are just inquiring about something. Vera, you have something?
Well, I was going to share, I have to leave for an appointment, but the Lord himself showed me that through a dream. And in the dream, I had my car and I was trying to drive uphill. And it was very sluggish and I couldn't keep going. And what he was saying is, you just put too much oil in the car. You've got too much oil. And then you should replace your oil. You don't keep adding to it. And he said, that's what you're doing with your schedule. You're just adding and adding and adding. So anyway.
I love that. That's really good.
Yeah.
I think we try to put too much on ourselves, and we can't do things with excellence. That's another thing to think about when you're deciding to put something on your schedule, or setting a boundary for yourself. Excuse me. Can I do that with excellence? And that's what God calls us to. Whatever we do, we want to do it as we're doing it for the Lord. And if we're doing it with a grudging heart, unkind thoughts, those kind of things, then that's not really what God's asking us to do. Tracy, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wondered, when you go back to the slideshow, can you bring the last one back up again, please?
I sure can. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. Hold on. Is this the one you want, the 3 things to remember, or the other one?
That's the one. Thank you.
Don't you love that purple in there? I think it was so pretty.
That is
I
pretty.
do. I did a screenshot, so I have it. Thank
You got it? Okay. Well, now comes the homework, ladies and gentlemen. This is your to-do list. So again, I'm telling you to do something, and if you don't want to do it, you say no. I want everybody to say no. No, I don't want to do it. Or yes, I do. Whichever one you want, So I just wanted to give you some ideas to do to help you establish boundaries. Again, I said earlier, practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes progress. So start saying no with the little things, whatever that is. Or it's just also practicing evaluation of what you're putting in your life and what you're allowing in your life. So be purposeful about it. I just skipped over some stuff. Hold on, sorry. Go back to my slide. The first thing I think you probably should do is set aside time to examine your schedule. When you get back from, I guess not get back, but end this conference, I would hope that you would find 1 to 3 things that you want to implement in your life, or do for your writing career or marketing or whatever it is, the industry wise. Because if you try to do everything that you learn about while you're here, you're going to be overwhelmed and probably nothing will happen. So figure out as you're going through, like, okay, just really evaluate, is this the one thing that if I carry away one thing from this course or this conference, what is it I want to put in my life? So one thing is easy to do. When you're trying to do 20, it's a little harder. So just make that list of your priority of setting aside a time first to set up your priorities. I would suggest that you look at what's sacred to you, making sure that you are putting that in first. That whole thing about the, you probably have seen that, where they have a bottle or a jar kind of thing, where they put big rocks in first and then the little rocks in the sand. So that's something to think about when you're trying to figure out your schedule. What are the big things that you need to do? Your health is one, getting rest, spending time with God. Those are those big rocks. Now what are the little ones that you can put in, and so just think about that as a filter, maybe, as you're trying to examine your schedule. And this may not go over well, but remove the toxic people, environments, events, conversations, and time wasters. Some of you may have to get off of farmland, or what is it called? Farm something.
Oh, Farmville?
Farmville. Yep. I have a couple of games on my phone too, but they're word phones, they're word games. So I think that I'm doing something well. I'm not, I'm wasting time. And so when my time is limited, that's one thing that I make sure I cut out. I make sure that that's not on my phone. I just take it off. So removing the toxic people. There are going to be people in your life, maybe, that are not supportive of the dream and the desires that God has for you. Either remove them completely or limit the amount of time that you're with them. Unfortunately, my family are not believers that live in Alabama, and I love them dearly, but I limit my conversations with them and time, because I know that they're not putting me forward to where God wants me to be and to do. And it's really hard. It's hard to create in a toxic environment. I don't know how anybody can do that. Me personally, I can't. And also there are events that, they just drag the life out of you. Look at look at all the events that you have set up, or you think you want to go to or be involved in. It may be a ministry that you need to pull out of. I mean, there's seasons for things. I worked at our church for 4 years as the connection consultant or connection specialist or whatever. My job was to plug people in basically and help new ministries or ministries get started, plug in, find people for them and their ministries, and loved my job. God called me out of that after 4 years and I was devastated. But the way he had to call me out of it was I had to go get sick for a couple of years to get my priorities right and to then start writing, because he had called me to write 30 years ago, but I wasn't doing that because I was busy doing other things. So for me, even the ministry part that I was in, I had to be pulled out. I still love my church. We're so involved in it, but just not to the level that I was before. So anyway, conversations. There's conversations I'm sure that can be toxic, and gossip is one of those. So please make sure that that is not part of your life, because it will suck life out of you. It will also give somebody the message that if you're willing to gossip with them, that you're willing to be toxic about other things too. So they won't respect you nearly as much as if you are a person of your word and good character. And of course, time wasters. That's what else. I want you to check in with your healthcare providers if you haven't. Stay healthy, whatever that means for you. So I have had, like I said, in the past, I've had some health issues. I've got bronchitis today. So I definitely am preaching to the right people, I think, to take care of ourselves as authors. We don't move enough. We don't drink enough usually of the right things. So make sure that you're resting, you're checking with your healthcare provider. When's the last time that you put that on your calendar to do that? You know, for women, have you gotten your mammogram? I mean, those kind of things that are easily to fall off our calendar. But if we're not taking care of ourselves, then we can't take care of anybody else. So incorporate these things. There's another to do. Incorporate healthy sleep, food, exercise, hydration, and work-life balance. And also, I don't know why I didn't put it on there, is fun. Make sure you incorporate healthy fun, because those are the things that are keep you healthy, will make it so that you can do the things that God has called you to do and continue the race. Another thing is that to remember is that your race is not the same pace as somebody else's pace. So make sure you're living a productive life at the pace God designed for you. So when you go home and you're doing your to-do list, figure out, am I trying to make a to-do list that is somebody who's at the top of their career and has 4 assistants and a maid that comes in and clean the house? Or am I the one who's still trying to break into the, whatever, and I still have to do all the chores? I still have children at home, whatever it is. Make sure that your pace is your pace that God's called for you. Be fully present wherever you are. If today at 4 o'clock you're supposed to be reading for enjoyment, then sit there and read for enjoyment. If you're supposed to be picking up your child, make sure you pick up your child. Whatever it is that where you're at. But when you're with your family and you're fellowshipping with other believers, or wherever you're at, be present. Don't worry about what's going to happen next, or what you haven't done yet and what you need to do. And because if you're in control of your calendar, if you're in control of your no, if you're in control of your yes, then you can make it easier for yourself to be exactly where you are and be present. And this last thing, I just love this quote. I don't know how much it really fits in with this topic, but I like from Eleanor Roosevelt. It says, do something every day that scares you, because the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. You want to make sure that you put in your boundaries a place to dream, for God to be able to give you space to grow and to dream in beautiful ways that God has for you. He does have an amazing plan for you, much bigger than you can even imagine. I'm gonna stop my share, I think. Try to anyway. Why is it? Oh, it's stop share. Okay. All right. That's my presentation. Now we're just gonna ask questions until we got like 15 minutes. I didn't know if you guys just wanted to chit chat or ask me anything in particular, like you might be struggling with and that maybe you wanted to address and I didn't addressed for you yet.
One of the things that I struggle with, and I'd like to get the rest of your opinions on it. I always have this feeling, I like to do my devotion in the morning and prayer. But if something happens like this morning when I wanted to be on the screen at 7:45 when they opened up in the main stage, so I didn't get to do those things. And I always, all day long, I have this feeling of guilt. Like, I know I'm not going to get to do this today because today is going to be a really busy day with the conference. And I don't know how to get around that. How do you guys handle that? Do you do your devotions and things like that first thing of a morning, or are you comfortable doing it at 2:00 in the afternoon?
For me, I love doing it in the morning, but I don't usually do it in the morning.
Okay.
That, because that's what they teach us. That's what we should be doing. And, I mean, I don't know should, but that, just doesn't necessarily work with me. So I do pray before I get out of bed. And then then later in the day, I spend time in the Word. But I've got this really cool thing that at night when I go to bed, trying to have that healthy sleep. I try not to have any blue light like the TV or the computer or whatever, because that'll definitely keep me awake. I listen to the Bible being read to me
Oh, nice.
on my phone.
Okay.
And that Bible app has that, and so that's kind of cool. You can do that and go to sleep with God's word in your ear. So that's one thing I do. And then I just want you to know that guilt doesn't come from God.
I realize that.
And so if you realize it and you put it into action, thinking whenever that comes up to your mind that you feel guilty, it's like, you know what? My Father is not mad at me because my schedule didn't work out today. He's not going to be angry because I didn't get to spend time like I wanted to with him. As long as, you're making sure you are, at some point spending time with him, but, making that God's not mad at you. I mean, you wouldn't be mad at your kids if they got up late and didn't get to, make their bed a certain way. I mean, maybe some people would, I guess, but, you know what I mean? Like, God's your daddy, your father, and he loves you. So it's not making sure that you're realizing that in your thought pattern that, you know what, this isn't from God. When you hear that, that's some old message from someplace else in your life, or Satan's just messing with you. And so just be like, oh no, I'm on to you, Satan. I haven't it. So, how about
I'd
somebody
like
else?
to listen to,
Patty, the same. Oh, go ahead.
Jacinta, you're the next one I wanted to speak to, actually, after I tell Dee Dee that I listen to KTLF radio all night long on my TuneIn,
Yep.
on my phone. And I don't know if you're familiar with KTLF being in Springs like you are, but oh my goodness, I love that station. Love, love, love it. But Jacinta, I was going to
Yes,
mention to you too.
I
It's-
wanted to say I went through that same concern, and actually it's interesting because Dee Dee was speaking about the Bible, or the audio Bible. Now my husband loves the audio Bible, but I've never gotten into it. And recently we traveled and I forgot my Bible, my physical Bible, which I really like. And for the 5-6 days I was away, I got into listening to the Bible as a substitute. And it really did work. It worked just as well. But what I have found is, I don't know if you use a devotional or a system where you actually follow how much, you decide how much you read or whatever each day. But that's what I do. So the next day I get an opportunity, I just do a longer devotion. And so I've gotten myself out of that, the guilt trip. You can pray. I pray all day long. I talk to God. I sing to God. I put on music. So devotion is such a large combination of stuff. And we have so many avenues for connecting with God that, to me, there's no need for guilt. It's just see where God wants you.
Right. I like to read the Our Daily Bread, and I feel like if I miss it one day, then I feel like I should try and catch up with the previous days as well as that day. And when I was doing the Bible in a year thing, forget it. I read a friend of mine gave me a copy of, I think it was the Life Application Study Bible. That thing is huge. Plus it was in large print because there's so many footnotes. And I finally thought to myself, is anybody going to just have a fit, including God, because I didn't finish it in a year. It took me 3.5 years to go through that Bible. But I
What
didn't,
one is that?
I wasn't always trying to catch up all the time, because if I had been, I'd be reading like, 18 chapters a day sometimes, and it was crazy. So I finally said, why am I on this time constraint that someone else has imposed, because they wrote this little thing out on a piece of paper of how much you're supposed to read in a day. So once I freed myself up to that, I enjoyed it a whole lot more. But Jacinta, what I was going to tell you, part of my problem too is having worked, you know how we work off shifts all the time, right?
Yeah.
I did swings, I did graves through my whole career, on and off. I cannot make myself go to bed at night at a decent hour. I'm up till between 12:30 and 1 every night. And of course, I want to be up by 7 in the morning.
You
So
should, Patty, you should think about the your circadian cycle. That I mean, yours
I
is
know.
different. Yours is just different. I mean, and it's okay. I mean, I think about like people that stay up at night. I think, you know what, those are our guardians in the middle of the night praying for us that while the rest of us are sleeping. I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's perfectly okay. Don't feel like that your life has to look like somebody else's because someone's told you that, or I mean, you do your pace. And so my sister says, you do you.
Mhm.
Catherine,
But
you
the
were
thing
gonna
is,
say
if I end up sleeping in, I hate that. I hate sleeping until like 9 o'clock. I feel like the whole day's
I know.
shot if I get up that late.
I know.
So yeah, I wish I could find a happy medium with the whole sleep thing.
Catherine, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I do my prayers and devotions at night. And last night, after a whole day of the conference, I never even changed my clothes. I don't remember going to bed. And this morning I woke up and then I remembered some theologian that some famous theologian said this, and I don't remember who it is, but he said, when someone asked him about falling asleep in the middle of their prayers, and his answer was, is there a better way to end the day than in prayer with your Heavenly Father?
That's
So
true.
I didn't feel so bad.
Yeah, I don't think God is connected to a time frame for us necessarily. I mean, he
No.
hasn't 8 o'clock, you haven't done it yet. Oh, so there goes your blessing for the day. I mean, that's not how God is.
I always thought it would be fun to write a book called "Is It Okay to Pray in the Shower?"
Yes, I love that. That sounds good. That's good. So Deborah, I'm going to have you unmute, ask a question. So what drew you to this class? Like, what was something that you thought you wanted to learn from today? I'm kind of asking of everybody if it's okay.
You would think at 66, I have this balance thing down.
Mm.
And I retired last year, and I think I'm busier than before.
Yep.
Or maybe it's because I'm slower, a little slower, and
Yeah.
and I'm not getting everything done that I also set my goals way too high. I realize that.
Mhm.
And so I'm trying to back off and be realistic. I just don't get the writing done like I promised myself I'm going to do. And I don't set my boundaries very well. And I know I need to do that.
Probably because you were working before, it might have been a little easier to set boundaries because you have to be at work at a certain time, you leave at a certain time.
True.
And now you're having to learn to do that on your own, and you're learning it at 66 instead of 16. I mean, so,
Right.
Whatever. So
Well,
it'll
everybody
take some
thinks
time.
you're free. Everybody thinks
Right.
you've got free time because
Right.
you're retired.
Yes.
You're like, my free time was that I worked all those times so I could do what I want to now. So,
Right. Right.
but I would suggest that you, when you go to evaluate your schedule, evaluate your calendar, your events, whatever it is you're going to be doing, that you set those like every day, like if every day I'm going to make one thing. If there's only one thing I get to do today, what is it? For me, it's make my bed. I make my bed every day. And then I'm like, oh, I'm good. I've done what I was supposed to do today. Now, then maybe you add 2 more things. You think, well, if I have time, I'll get to that. Okay, that's the dishes. I mean, or whatever that is. But then maybe your second thing is, what, I'm not going to do anything else till I write something. And there again, you set some goals for yourself as far as don't make your whole, like, say you're going to write a book. I'm not sure what you're writing, but say you're going to write a book. You're not going to write a book in one day, right? It's word by word. Same way you eat an ant eats an elephant, one bite at a time. You're going to do your activities, your things that you want to accomplish one at a time. And it's okay for them to change too. But again, set one thing that you're going to do that day. And that's what I do for myself, like for my writing goals or whatever, or, you know, if I have a project I'm working on, or I'm like, I break it down into things, but I also say, you don't go to bed before you do this one thing. You know what I mean? And so if I have to keep myself up a little bit late to do that, or, you know, but I know that in my head all day long, it's like, okay, I'm gonna get this to this, gotta get to that. But I don't do like 10 things I gotta get to. I try that one thing. Now I do have a list of 150, you know, but those aren't the priority for that day. And so that's the thing to understand. Like my son's getting married in June. I'm so excited. And we still need to send out some wedding invitations. So I was like, yesterday, my goal was to write out those invitations, and that if I got nothing else done yesterday, that's what I was going to do. And I did.
Right.
So, you know, so maybe that will help you. I hope.
Yes, thank you.
Jocelyn, did you want to say something? I mean, what were you coming for the class for? What kind of were you thinking?
Well, I was just the need to set the boundaries, because sometimes I just feel like no matter what I try, no matter how I schedule, no matter what, I can't get to the writing without interruption piece, you know.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah.
It's just constant. So
Are you a person that writes a lot at one time? Or are you kind of a person that says, you know what, I can write, you know, 100 words today? Or what has your experience been? Like where have you seen success at?
I like to write a lot at one time, but I find myself just doing it in spurts.
So
because I'm like, oh, I have 15 minutes. And so I write. You know?
Right. And it's okay to do that too. What I would recommend is set aside 1 week in a month, 1 day a month, whatever it is that you can say, you know what, I'm staying in my pajamas and I'm writing all day long. Don't make yourself up. Don't get cleaned up, because then you'll be tempted to go out or to have somebody over, you know, like
Sure.
just do you that day and write. Put it on your calendar, make a big X on it, let everybody know I'm not answering my
A
phone.
big W, like Liz said
Like a big W, exactly.
in her first
that-
workshop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that to me sounds like a dream because it's like, how do I get everybody else in the house, you know, to understand? You know, I try to do it on days like, you know, work day when my husband's at work and the kids are in school, but inevitably somebody's going to be sick, somebody's going to get home early, something is going to happen, and it just you know, I close the door and they'll come knock on it. I mean, it just so,
there needs to be penalty for that to them. I mean, I don't mean
Okay.
that mean, but I mean, like, you know what, look, if you disturb me, you're not going to go get this or go be able to, I mean, because they have now compromised your time and your sacredness. And it's sitting down, having a conversation with your family. Maybe it's a family meeting and saying, this is important to me. God has called me to do this, and you are interrupting God when you interrupt me. I mean, so, you know, I mean, seriously,
Right.
if you
Right.
were working someplace, you were a fireman, they couldn't stop you at the firehouse and say, you know what, your child needs some, you know, banana juice or whatever. I don't know, you know, something, banana juice, some juice.
Yes.
That wouldn't happen. And so you need to respect it yourself, saying, this is my job. And right now I will attend you. And that's what I was talking about earlier. Be present when you're present. You know, we're fully present. So when they come to your door, say, nope, can't do it. Maybe even make yourself a little sign you hold up and go, read the sign. So you don't even have to talk to them, you know, and so they know that that's not okay. My daughter was funny. She didn't understand about the writing process because she's not a creative that way. And she would bring her small children and sit them on my lap at my desk and expect me to write with them. Like
Oh my.
years old. And I was just getting more irritated, I'm like, why are you not respecting my space?
Right.
And finally I got frustrated with her and talked to her, and she's like, I didn't know you need to think about it. Okay. I mean, you know, I just could not believe that she didn't have that idea. But they may not know. They don't understand the process of an author if they're not one. And so it's up to you to teach them to respect your authorness, if that's the right word. I don't know if that's a real word or not. But so does that help you any, Jocelyn?
It does. I just
And if
I have to be firmer, I guess.
If you need me
It's
to
hard.
call me when they're going to bother you, and I'll just call. I'll tell them. Leave you alone.
Okay. Okay.
Lisa, what about you? What were you looking for out of the this time together? Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
Probably nothing that anyone else didn't already say, although I do have kind of an awkward question. In my writing, okay, so I write and speak primarily about my experience with child sexual abuse. I also was abused by my sister, and that's something I don't write about. We don't have a whole lot of a relationship, but we do have somewhat of a relationship. So when we're talking about boundaries, like we just had to put some boundaries on our relationship because of her alcoholism. And I'm not sure I'm even doing the right thing with that. But when it comes to talking about it or writing about it, then I feel like I really can't do that. And I'm not sure how to, like if I'm talking with somebody and they bring up the kind of abuse I suffered, I want to be able to talk to them, but then I'm not sure I should because my sister is still.
Is she in the area? Is she in the area with you?
Yeah.
That's tough. And it may not be the season yet. I mean, that's unfortunate. Maybe it's just that you're writing about it in preparation for it to be a season later. I mean, so that might be something. Also, you can always talk about it, write about it in a fictional terms instead of nonfiction. That's where they, especially like memoirs, you know, like if you're going to do those, a lot of times you just change it to a fictional story. You can do that. And that's helpful. I know I also was an abuse victim. And so I understand it's hard because I lost my, my family didn't even speak to me for about 6 months because I had spoken about something. And so they were like, oh, you know, so anyway, but you know, it's a hard place where you're at, definitely. But putting boundaries is good. There's an amazing book called Boundaries. You guys ever heard of it?
Yeah.
Yes, and I've been through that course not once, but twice.
Then do it again if you need to. It's okay to put the boundaries in place. Also, you may need help with a counselor or somebody that's gone through it. Also, Lisa, that is successful in setting those boundaries and knowing how to do that. And then also with the alcoholism, the Al-Anon is a great group to join to help you figure out how to set those healthy boundaries with them, with your sister, I mean. So I hope that's helpful. Yeah. What about you, Cynthia? We've got 1 more minute. I think they're going to kick us out, but we'll keep going as long as we can.
Dee Dee, you need to save your chat because there's quite a few comments for you in there.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry, I should have told you that soon.
Let me put my email in here too, if you guys want to email me.
Thank you.
If you have a question or anything, you want to send it to me.
I have a question. Or just a comment. I'll just say that I've been listening to everybody's remarks here, and I think we do need life balance. And one of the challenges that I face is that I have a lot of people speaking into my life. I've taken seminars and I've taken conferences and I've got this. And it's like a lot of them have a theme. And I do have a person that I'm working with to help me create a whole setting and everything with regard to book that I've got launching in July and such. And I think one of the challenges for me is like I am trying to put together now audience message, emails, lead magnets, newsletters, website, and all of those things. And I think that they all are not a jumble, but I need to dissect them. And so I'm asking for prayer. So the next 2 weeks, I'm going to work on that.
Good deal. I'm writing it down.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So who did I just talk to? Cynthia. By the way, you look like one of my best friends from high school. When I saw it, I was like, Deb, but you're not Deb. So go ahead.
Yes, today I just realized so much for everyone to share. And Jacinta, Patty, and the other lady, I just was like, wow, this is like what? So today I'm supposed to go to a conference and I decided not to, and I knew at that time it wasn't the best decision. And that guilt has been trying to stick with me, but I can shake it off and say, wait, no, I made a decision. And it's okay because I can have my leisure time next week.
Yep.
But I'm not looking back.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you, Cynthia. Making it sacred. Yep. What about you, Tracy?
I guess I come hoping to learn some tips on balancing work and writing and life and family. I work at a factory. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning. I start work at 6. A lot of days I'm working 10, 11 hours. So I leave home. I'm up by 4 o'clock and I don't get home until 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. So I'm looking to kind of find a way to commit myself a little better to scheduling some time to write and stick to it. So I think you gave me some good tips.
Good. Okay. And you can reach out to me too. We can chat later. I mean, I know this is trying to get
Okay.
a lot in at one time. I don't mind at all. Just email me and we'll connect. I think that email I did too. I think what else I could tell you real quick that might help. Like maybe going back to what I was talking about earlier, doing one thing every day. If that is just reading or watching a podcast on your lunch break, about writing or the industry. If it's learning a new skill in writing, just those kind of things. Because so you're building and feeling like you're filling yourself up with the things that are important to you. It doesn't have to be a great big time, like Jocelyn was saying, she likes to write in a large period of time. But right now her reality is that she's just getting little ones. And that may be the case for you too, is that count your things that you're doing as successes. You're here at a conference, that's amazing that you're doing that. After the conference, if there was a class that you missed that you wanted to read or watch or whatever, make sure you set that aside to do that. It's only 45 minutes or so for a class, right? So if you are an hour, you can do a half hour at a time, maybe when you get home, right before you go to bed, watch it, and take some notes or whatever you need to do. But I think it's giving ourselves a pat on the back about the things that we are doing and doing well. Every day that you feed your family, you go to work, you're doing good. You get up and make your bed, whatever that is for you.
And a cool thing about podcasting, you can listen to them while you're doing dishes, driving to work, whatever. You can pause them, pick up the rest of it later.
That's right. Patty's a podcaster, so she's got that. But yes, just try and figure out like one thing every day that you can do that's small. I don't mean like, you're going to make the great American novel today. Maybe it's just that you sit down and think out, who my character is going to be. What's my setting going to be? And work on that for a week or whatever. So don't feel like you've got to get everything accomplished now. You're working towards, it's progress that you're looking for, not perfection. And I hope that helps you.
Help.
Very helpful, Judy.
Jacinta, what was it you would like to have from today?
Going forward, any more tips to kind of balance things? There's a lot coming at me, and a lot of this stuff I already knew I wanted to do, and in fact, some of them I've already set in motion. But I tell you honestly, I am here because of God, because I did not know about the conference and I didn't plan to be here, but He had that in mind.
Nice.
Because the 2 weeks before the conference, I just was overwhelmed. I just felt like I didn't feel like canceling one thing. I felt like canceling everything. And He got me to this place, and I got to know about the conference 1 week ago.
Wow.
So I know that that's part of the journey for me. I had already stopped doing certain things, canceled certain things. So it is just now deciding, like one of the things you said, set one thing at a time. I'm like you, I have the 150 things on the list on the side, and that always seems to come into my consciousness. So I have to kind of focus.
And for women, that's hard. We're not really designed to be in categories or, different boxes. We have everything connected. So that makes it a little difficult. What was I going to tell you? I know. Jacinta, maybe something that might help all of you is that you create a percentage of the time. Like when you look at your schedule, say, 10% of my time I'm going to give to God or whatever. 10% I'm going to give to taking care of my health. And so then you look at your schedules, like, does that balance with my writing? I want to do 20% of my time I want to write. So when you're scheduling your time, how does that look? And I think maybe that might help you a little bit with the percentage thing. So, Catherine, Oh, I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Jacinta.
That's a great idea. I think I haven't tried that one. So
Let me
that's
know let me know how it works
I'm
for
wi-
you.
yeah, I'm willing to try anything and
know.
everything.
Well, like we do that with our money. I mean, we did, the guy's on the radio, I can't think of his name now, but he has you do like a certain percentage of, goes to your utilities, certain percent goes to, tithe or, different taxes. And so then you're like, okay, well, mine is out of balance of what I want it to be. And so maybe that's where you look at and say, what balance of time do I want to be spending on writing or, chatting with my neighbor? I mean, those kind of things. So hope that helps. Hope that helps. Catherine, what about you? What did you hope to get out today or needs to know?
Oh, you referring to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, all of the above, everything that everybody said, especially learning to set boundaries better.
Yep.
Something I've struggled with my whole life. It's
not
hard for
uncommon.
me to say no.
Yeah. Have you read that book, Boundaries by James?
I have
Okay.
several times
Oh,
in different stages of my life. And I just turned 78 and decided that I'd worked long enough. So I retired. And now I'm more busy than I ever have been because I can't say no.
okay. I want you to change what you just said. I can say no. Say
I
that.
can say no.
Yep. I can
can
say
say-
no. And it's
I'm gonna
okay.
write it down here.
Yep. It's okay to say no. Yep. If nothing else we learned over the last few years, we can say no. Yep. Whatever that is,
Okay.
whatever's healthy for you that God has called you to do. I mean, that's the thing to understand is when somebody's asking you to do something else, it's not God calling you necessarily. And that's got to be your priority, that whenever you decide to put anything in your schedule, let someone in, conversations, events, activities, whatever it is, just put it through the filter of, is this what God's calling me to do in this moment? And if you don't know, sometimes you don't know, but sometimes you really do know. It's like, that's not what God's wanting for me. And
Like, I'm really wasting my time here.
yeah, exactly. Well, I think that,
Thank you for that. Thank you for that advice. That's very good.
I do hope it helps. Yeah, get in touch with me. Let me know how things go. And I can always maybe give you some other advice. I'm great with boundaries. Like, I may not know how to put a battery in a remote, but I know how to set boundaries really easy. So I'm like a boundary queen. So if you need help, if you need some bolstering up, just let me know and I'll, bolster
You
you up.
need to offer a class on that, Dee Dee.
I know, right? Well, they've
Yeah.
already written it, so I just, but yeah, pretty cool. See what I just did right there to her? Patty has a great idea. That's an excellent idea to teach her, to create a class. But I know that that's not what God's called me to teach on yet. So I just said to her, oh, that's a great idea. Someone's already written it. So I didn't have to tell her no, but I did have to say, that's not, don't, so she doesn't have that expectation that maybe I'll do that later. So that's something to, and I didn't mean that to be harsh to Patty at all. I hope that.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying,
Yeah.
Dee Dee,